This is the story of people who turned a dream into reality. This is about people whose love of the automobile formed the framework for the birth of drag racing. This is the story of gathering speed.
That was an era, I truly believe when I think back about it. We had just dropped the horses. My dad had stopped talking about horses, and of course the automobile age was upon us, Model Ts, Model As, and little Chevys and stuff. And this was my era. The first time I had an opportunity to run at the Dry Lakes was 1934. And the dry lake we ran on that particular year was what is now Edwards Air Force Base. In them days, it was Muroc Dry Lake. And I had a golden opportunity to drive my brother's 28 Chevrolet Roadster. He and I were working on it. He got a little nervous or scared. He had the foot shakes. And I said, well, heck, I'll drive it. So I got a chance to drive it 92 miles an hour. And what a thrill, with leather helmet, no roll bar, nothing.
Well, the Dry Lake was a unique situation because it was the only place that was available where you could take your car and run the thing and extend it for miles and miles. The early pioneers, I guess, who went to the Dry Lake were people who had Model Ts and four-cylinder Chevrolets. Most of them were cars that were driven on the street, but when they would get up to the Dry Lakes after an all-night drive across rutty roads in the desert, well, the first thing you would do would be to catch a little bit of sleep, and then before sunrise, take off the fenders, take off the running boards, take off the headlights, take off the windshield, strip the car down, and get it so it was race ready.
It was a calling, and I think everybody that initially started in this sport, that they had the same type of calling. They were interested in automobiles. And my first experience was you had to go up over Cajon Pass. And Cajon Pass, for anybody that lives in Southern California, knows that it's can be hotter than hell. And so we had to go over there at nighttime. And then you attempted, in 2 or 3 shots, you made it up over the hill without boiling all the water out of your car. Anyway, over the hill and down. And the first time you go out, you really don't know how to find the Dry Lakes. It's just a place out in the desert, and you know it's by a town called Adelanto, so you can find that because there's signs going to it. Finally, we got onto the lake, and it was just like we had driven into a gigantic expanse of open, flat dirt. And the headlights on the car, it was very dark, and the headlights on the car were limited to how much area they could cover, but there wasn't anywhere you could drive that you didn't have a flat, smooth surface to run on.
Well, the Dry Lakes Racecourse, of course, if you have ever seen a dry lake, or it's just a great big flat alkaline body, and you pick the best spot, you make some trial runs and see where it's fairly solid, and then they would set up a row of cones with a trap at the end. You run down through the row of cones, and they caught your time down at the end.
The cars were classified according to the speed that they ran. And if you ran 86 mile an hour, why, your race was in the 80 to 90 mile an hour class. It was a mixed bag. There was no attempt to classify the cars other than their speed performance, and there was no attempt to supervise safety. It was just left to every individual to have his car safe and drive it safely.
attraction, I think, was as racing is today. It's a challenge to compete. Like any phase of racing, it's just a challenge to do better and do what you can.
Very early racing, when I first started, there were no prizes at all. They gave you a little metal tag. I should have had one here to show you. There's a little brass tag, and it had on there where the race was being held and the date, and the class of car that you were running and the time that you achieved. It didn't say whether you were first place or 20th place, it just gave you your time. Later on, the fellas started chipping in money for entry fees, and that gave us a source of funds to buy trophies with.
The Southern California area was very active as far as car clubs were concerned. There were clubs in San Diego and Los Angeles and areas all around there with names like the Low Flyers and the Night Riders and the Hot Irons and the Roadrunners and so forth. And they were primarily groups that met for various reasons. They'd put on cruises and reliability run, things of that nature. And periodically, when there would be a race up at the dry lakes, they would converge up there and take part in those events. There was very little organization at the time. It was just a matter of finding somebody who had some type of timer and then organizing the race. So in 1937, these clubs, about 20 of them in number, got together and actually formed the Southern California Timing Association, which was the first organization of its type in the so-called hot rod activity. The name hadn't come up yet, but they got together and formed this organization, and its principal function was to produce and conduct the races at the dry lakes on usually a 4 times a year basis.
Over a period of time, we enacted rules for competition cars, to certain of the competition cars, to have rollover bars. Seat belts became a must. Proper construction of the car, and we'd have a technical committee that would look at the car to feel that if we let it run, then it would go down through the traps without creating a problem.
A very primitive operation, but one that had a magic to it, that once you were up there, well, you could hardly wait until the next opportunity to go back and run your car again, or just go up and be a spectator.
The 50s was a great era. We'd watched all our heroes come back from World War II and play with the little race cars and get them all going. In the 50s, when we were in school, the real love affair with the American automobile, to me, started. The Fonzie area, everybody was into football, baseball, basketball, but everybody loved cars. Cars reflected such an individual trait for everybody at that time. I mean, there were so many different cars. And street racing was just the way of life then, it seemed like, in school.
As we know, anyone who was actively involved with building a car of his own was looking for recognition. So it was only natural that they would take them to the drive-in stand and socialize with the people who were in there. And then ultimately, why there would be a need to take the car out and show what the results of the performance experimentation had done. And it would end up in what we used to call a choose-off. In other words, one owner would choose the owner of the other car, and they would select a place and discreetly drive out there, usually in the middle of the night, and set up a race.
some of the general public just thought that these were renegade kids, and I think rebel without a cause is an indicative phrase of what the general public thought of some of us as hot rodders in the early days. Probably back in those days, a few of them, I don't quite think the leather jacket age had arrived yet. I think they were just kids that were very hard to identify, other than the fact that their car spoke for them. Their car was definitely a part of them.
My first experience in street racing was when I was a 9th grade student at Huntington Park High School, and that would be about 1937 or 1938. The motivation for street racing, of course, came out of what I think is a typical American feeling for competition in any sport. This happened to be an activity that involved kids who had modified their own cars, and they just wanted to try them out against each other. A lot of the racing was done in those days up at the dry lakes, the old Muroc Dry Lake in particular, for top speed runs, but because the lake bed was primarily dried clay, it didn't provide good traction for drag racing. So the circuit began, and we did the street racing generally shortly after dark, 8 o'clock at night or so, and we'd go until the highway patrol showed up with their red lights and sirens, and we'd take off through the bean fields or whatever happened to be handy that we could hide in.
I vividly remember seeing probably 300 to 500 cars out there, and you just drive up right by the vehicles. You'd see some schmoker that you thought, hey, this looked like something I want. You'd say, what do you got? And he'd tell you, and you'd say, drag it out. That's where that expression really come from. So the guy would come out, you'd go down, and you'd face off on Lincoln Boulevard, and mind you, both sides of that road would be full of cars. And here you'd hear this rubber squealing and take off. And in them days, the headlights were mounted very loosely. In fact, they were flickering like crazy. And these roadsters would come down there, and the grills would whistle. There's an eerie sound. Remind me of a lot of the German little jet jobs during the war. When they'd come in, you'd hear this, you know, and here these cars would come by probably 90, 100 miles an hour. And who won? No one had a judge on it. They just put you up in front of the crowd. And if you were the winner, you felt good. And if you was a loser, I think you just kept right on going. Went home.
I went on the department in 1948. In 1949, I was working accident investigation when a suspected car went by. Beautiful little yellow 1940 Ford Coupe. So I leaped into my trusty black and white Charger and took off in hot pursuit. And he had a much better engine than I, and so we lost him. I told the sergeant the fuel pump failed because I couldn't believe that I could not drive as good as that kid, but he lost me. So about a month later, I spotted the same car, and I pulled him over. His dad was in the car with him, and I talked to his dad about what had happened, and the boy thought I was really going to hang one on him, and I just showed a real interest in his car because it was a beautifully put together car. Had a beautiful engine, flathead, full race engine. When I got through, he said, you know, I belong to a car club called the Aristocrats, and it sure be nice if you'd come to one of our meetings and talk to us a little bit about drag strips and drag racing, because in those days there were no drag strips. And I agreed. I'd come to their next meeting. I did, and that was a very interesting experience because while he knew I was coming and I knew I was going to be there, he hadn't told anybody else. And understanding the feeling that existed between hot rodders and police officers was an adversary at best. And the president said, the meeting's adjourned. Anybody who wants to leave can leave. I thought that was a little rude. But again, if you understand the relationship between the policemen and the hot rodders in those days, it was not a very friendly relationship. Nobody left. They wanted to hear what I had to say. And by the time we got through, I used up my entire 45-minute lunch period. It was at nighttime, but we had developed a good rapport. They realized that I was interested in trying to provide off-street racing. I saw the need for drag strips. But at the same time, I was concerned about their safety. And they invited me back, and I showed them a racing film that I'd picked up, and that led to going to other club meetings, and the next thing I knew, I was so busy doing car club meetings on my nights off that the department decided I'd be better